All right, it's time to talk about why Venus in Virgo is one of the most beautiful placements, but also one of the more difficult ones as well. Hola my beautiful lotus flowers, welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you're into nerding out on everything astrology, spirituality, and self-transformation, this is the community for you. Today is all about having Venus in the sign of Virgo, and what this means is that the exact time you were born, Venus, the planet, was moving through the zodiac constellation of Virgo the moment you were born. If you're not entirely sure what Venus means in astrology, then I will have a pre-recorded segment talking about Venus in astrology before we start the actual video about the placement. After that, we will talk about the general traits of somebody who has Venus in Virgo, and we'll end the video with some empowering tips for anybody watching this who has this placement. And this may even be helpful for you to watch if you know somebody with Venus in Virgo. I'm not just gonna say, oh yeah, you're a Venus in Virgo and you're this way and that way, and then just leave you hanging. I will have some empowerment at the end of the video for you so you can move forward positively with this knowledge. Now, let's start the video with an introduction to the planet Venus in astrology. Venus is the planet of love, creativity / creation, and the material world. Venus actually rules over two zodiac signs, both Taurus and Libra. Taurus is an earth sign and Libra is an air sign. Venus's location on your birth chart will give you more specific insight into what you're drawn towards in the world and what's also drawn towards you. You can think of, quote, what I like and what I attract to remember what Venus means in your chart. In the words of Christopher Renstrom from the Cosmic Calendar, Venus can be summarized into being your astrological perfume. I thought that was an amazing little analogy. Venus is heavily associated with fertility, but this doesn't simply refer to biological fertility. This actually refers more to what we create in the physical world, from art to wealth, etc. So think manifestation. Venus's placement will say a lot about what you might create in this life, what's important to you to create, and what you're aesthetically and romantically drawn to. But remember, pay attention to whether Venus was retrograde at the time you were born, and the way that you can identify that is when you pull up your natal chart, it should show you a little RX, which is the retrograde symbol, next to whichever planets were retrograde in your chart at the time you were born. And I would try a few different sites just to make sure that you don't see that little retrograde, because not every site provides it. But this basically means that a lot of the traits that I talk about, it may manifest as the opposite for you when it's retrograde. This isn't always true. Retrograde can channel itself as many different things, but typically, say your Venus placement is supposed to make you really value someone who's nurturing and caring. Well, if it was retrograde, then maybe you struggle to find somebody who's nurturing and caring, and you end up in a lot of bad relationships. So it could channel itself many different ways, but it is something to pay attention to in your chart and do research on as well. Now for the general traits of somebody who has Venus in Virgo. First, it's important to remember that Virgo is the mutable earth sign ruled by Mercury, symbolized by the Virgin. Number one, this placement will make these individuals great at curating meaningful relationships due to their naturally intellectual, communicative, and detail-oriented nature. Having Venus channeled through a Mercury-ruled sign means that communication and attention to detail are at the forefront of this person's personal relationships and just overall personal life. Because they're naturally so analytical and intellectual, they love learning every detail about the things that interest them. So when it comes to personal relationships, especially because we're dealing with the Venus sign, then this person is going to love learning every little last detail about the person that they like, or just the friends that they have, or even family that's close to them. Whoever it is in their personal life that's in their inner circle, they'll want to learn every detail about them, because that's how they show that they care, by learning every detail about somebody and then knowing how to be around them, how to make them happy, what will make them happy, etc. And it's because that they're so detail oriented that they're actually super selective about which people they allow into their close inner circle. And one of the biggest, most meaningful traits that people need to have for them is intellect. They're going to value having intellectual, intriguing, and enticing conversations with people that they're trying to build relationships with. Second, these individuals may have a natural allure to their presence due to seeming a bit, quote, mysterious or, quote, reserved, unquote, because they're highly selective about who and what they dedicate energy to. Earth signs in general are known for having a more practical and grounded approach to their lives. Of course, they show up differently in every Earth sign, and for the meticulous Earth sign of Virgo specifically, we're going to have somebody who is much pickier about what they put their energy towards. This means that they can come off a bit more aloof or private with general people that they don't know very well, because if they don't deem these people worthy of being in their closer space and getting to know each other, then they're not going to usually reveal too much. This can also make them seem a little bit shy and reserved with other people as well, which is definitely an attractive trait to some people. You know how like TV shows and stuff always have that really aloof character, especially if it's a boy, and like everybody loves the aloof character and thinks he's like the most attractive thing ever. This could definitely be the type of appeal that a Venus in Virgo has. But because they are highly selective of who they dedicate their energy and resources towards, they are going to go all out when it comes to people that they have deemed worthy, like we talked about. And especially when it comes to Virgo. Virgo is a very service-oriented earth sign that has a knack for just taking care of others and knowing what other people need. However, this isn't to be confused with somebody who's gonna buy people a bunch of gifts, and they don't really like surface level or materialistic type gestures, especially because we're dealing with the Venus sign, which deals with material things. So the main way that they're going to show the Venusian nature through the sign of Virgo is really through acts of service. They're going to be the type of person that if they really care about you and have really built a relationship with you and dedicated that time, then whether it's their friend, their family, or their partner, they're going to do things that are like just little meaningful things that other people maybe wouldn't think of. So for example, if they notice that you've been having a hard time at work and you've been really stressed out, they're not going to like surprise you with a bunch of chocolates and whatnot. I mean, they might, but this isn't going to be their ideal way of showing their affection. They're probably going to do something like offer to make you dinner, you know, until you can catch up with work, and offer to wash the dishes and pick up extra chores around the house so that way you can chill out. They're going to do something like that. Or they're going to be the type to do something like save up money in a fund for their kid. Like if they have a kid, they're going to save up money in a fund. They're not going to buy their kids a bunch of meaningless gifts. They're going to do something that's practical and will help the kid in the long run a lot more. So these acts of service are very based on what they learn about other people that they have let into their space. If you're enjoying this video so far, please stop and be sure that you hit the like button real quick and the subscribe button along with the bell so you don't miss future videos just like this one, and so can reach other people just like you. Also, be sure to leave a comment down below if you have Venus in Virgo, or even if you don't, leave your Venus sign below as well. I love to know who's watching. Third, they tend to be very careful with how they spend their resources, like time, money, energy, etc., always looking at the most practical route, sometimes to the point of being overly critical of themselves or others. Having Venus channeled through a mutable sign means that there is a lot of logic and intellect and planning that goes into how Virgo uses their resources, because again, Venus is dealing with the material realm. It's dealing with what we tend to manifest and the people we tend to attract and who we're attracted to, etc. So when it comes to their resources, whatever physical resources it is, they have a very practical approach, and they like to be very planned about how they approach everything. Like we mentioned in the previous trait, although this sign can be extremely devoted and dedicated and generous with the people that they love, When it comes to themselves especially, they can be rather frugal and highly critical of the way that they're using their time and energy. For example, they'll be very careful about how they're using their finances, especially if it comes to, this bigger plan that they have. Maybe they have something physical that they feel they need to go towards, like owning a house. Well, they're going to be extremely strict with themselves to the point of maybe being a little too harsh. And they won't really ever spend on self-indulgent things. If they don't deem it as necessary, they're the type that may not do it. However, this isn't to be confused with them never spending time on how they look. For example, this can be a little hard to or tricky to explain, but in terms of them being overly critical and planning a lot and being just very meticulous in general, and we're dealing with Venus, which again is physicality and the sign of, or the planet of beauty especially. Venus in Virgo, we see that this person can be extremely critical of themselves as well. This is a type that can be, the person who takes up strict diets, very restrictive diets that are uncomfortable, or they undergo certain surgeries because they're highly critical of how they look. And this manifests the most in a Venus in Virgo because, again, we're dealing with the planet Venus. So they can be highly critical of themselves and they can be highly critical of other people in the same way. But a lot of times their criticism is coming from a good place when it comes to other people. A lot of times they just want to look out for those people and they just want to make sure that they're helping them in the best way they can. But not everybody welcomes criticism positively. So Venus and Virgo might have to be careful with that one. Additionally, on the more positive side, because they can be so restrictive or so calculated or well calculated with their resources, they can be the type of people to naturally be able to manifest a lot of wealth and success for themselves. Fourth, they can actually become a source of hope and reassurance for others, especially those that they develop relationships with. When you think of a sign that's going to provide a lot of inspiration and just be in the public eye and everything, you think of probably like Venus being in a fire sign or something. But Venus in Virgo is actually a great placement for providing hope and really reigniting positive energy into other people. And the reason being, this ties back into the symbol of Virgo, which is the Virgin, or also called the Maiden. And this traditionally symbolizes harvest, cultivating, and service to other people. Because of this, Virgo is considered one of the more service-oriented signs in the zodiac. A lot of Virgos that you meet, if they have a Virgo sun sign, they will naturally want to take care of other people, even if it's detrimental to them. It's something that they enjoy doing or that they can't help but do. Like we talked about in an earlier trait, they're the type that's going to do very important acts of service that they know mean a lot to the person. I talked about them picking up extra chores so you can finish your work or so you can relax, and they're the type to put aside funds for somebody that they love so that way that person can have, a home or a car, something that they can use practically in the long term as well. And when you have somebody like this in your space, somebody with Venus and Virgo, it can be inspiring because this type of person is so selfless a lot of the time and so willing to put themselves out there for who they care about that a lot of people around them can't help but respect them. If you know somebody, if you're watching this and you know someone with Venus and Virgo, most likely that person, you've looked at them at some point in time and wow, how do you do it? How do you keep up? How do you, if they can do it, I want to be able to do that. Or they might inspire others to just be better people, especially if this Venus sign takes this trait into the more public eye, a more public career. This can happen a lot. If this is some type of celebrity or something, then they may do very charitable things or other acts of service that are more in the public eye that really inspires other people as well. Now let's talk about some tips for empowerment if you have Venus in Virgo. Number 1, this placement may be highly prone to being taken advantage of by others. Yes, this placement can be very selective about who they let in their inner circle, but that doesn't mean that they have some superhuman ability to never let the wrong people in their inner circle, because they naturally want to take care of others. They naturally want to cultivate these relationships with people that interest them or whatever it is. So they're human, and every once in a while a bad seed may slip through the cracks that takes advantage of the Venus in Virgo. Especially this can take form with people that they feel obligated to, such as family members that they grew up with. They may feel obligated to take care of them or help them in some way, even though they are never going to give anything in return, and they're just going to keep taking and taking and taking. If you have this placement, you can definitely empower yourself by working to build awareness and be conscious of who you're letting into your inner circle or who's doing this to you. And don't be afraid to be a bit harsh with yourself. And a lot of times we know what's happening, or we know we're being taken advantage of, but it can be hard to face the truth, especially if it's somebody that we have grown to care about. My biggest advice is really allowing yourself a lot of space frequently from other people, even people you know are doing you well and everything, because this can help replenish your energy and provide clarity in your mind and your heart about who may be just taking and taking from your life and who's actually draining you. Because if you're always around certain people, it's really hard to take a step back and be on the outside looking in so you can see the truth if you're just always in the middle of everything trying to help everybody. So frequent time alone and allowing that space is very important for this placement. Second, be aware of your potential tendency to be overcritical and over-analytical. Venus and Virgo. Sometimes it is a good thing to indulge even a little bit. I mentioned that this might be the type of placement to put themselves on a restrictive diet earlier. Well, it's okay to have your favorite dessert once in a while. Like, let yourself have dessert, you know? Or if you feel like it's unnecessary to get like a massage or something, you know, you could put that money towards something better. Not everything you do has to have a practical use, and actually it's important to take care of yourself and make yourself feel like you're a little pampered. Everybody requires that. Everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. And this placement can severely lack that. Depending on other placements, they may have a stronger tug to do these types of things, but the Venus and Virgo placement is kind of stopping them because they just can't fathom spending their funds or spending their time going to get an hour-long massage when they could be doing something else. Just get the massage. Just eat the ice cream. Just once in a while is okay and is actually necessary for your mental health. This is definitely a placement that's very prone to being in a constant state of anxiousness. Why? Because they are so analytical and always thinking practically. It's exhausting to think practically. It's exhausting to always think about the best way you could use that and the best way you could plan your time. It's just not everything has to be optimized all the time, because this is a way to put constant pressure on yourself and make yourself anxious and stressed unnecessarily. If you have this placement, or you know somebody who does, make it a point that you settle down every once in a while and just indulge even a little bit. Once again, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to comment your Venus sign down below, especially if you have Venus in Virgo. I'd love to know. And hit the like button, subscribe, and the bell. And you could also hop over to the LaBlue Lotus Facebook community. Link will be in the description, where we talk more about using astrology, spirituality for self-transformation. Want even more content? You can go over to my Instagram at Marisa LaBlue, where I upload more personal things as well as more astrology and spirituality content. And until the next video, you can watch these ones if you haven't already to help you more on your journey. Until I see you next time, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.